Hey, what's up YouTube? IModernarts here, and today I'm going to show you how to make a pretty cool abstract shape in Cinema 4D. So this is what it is going to look like, something like this. So you can use it for desktop backgrounds, YouTube backgrounds, speed arts, like random projects, intros, whatever you feel like. You can like put it in your montages. It's really up to you, but it's a pretty cool effect, and it's pretty easy to create. And you can make it look however you want. It doesn't have to necessarily look like this. Obviously you can choose the colors. So let's get started, but real quick before we do, please do me a favor and like the video. That really helps and inspires me to make more tutorials. Also, if you have a question or whatever, feel free to comment. Alright, let's get started. So I'm going to open up Cinema 4D. I'm just going to center the camera view like so you just can see everything well, if that makes sense. And we're going to start off this abstract shape with a cube. So we're just going to load in a cube. And for the size values, we're going to want to put the first one, the size X, at 30. The second one, the size Y, at 150. And the third one, the size Z, also at 30. So you have kind of a pillar-like shape. And that's going to basically be one of these little cubes. And now we're going to put this into a cloner object so we have multiple cubes. So we're going to go to MoGraph, click cloner object, and we're going to drag the cube into the cloner object. So first of all, we're going to change the mode to grid array. And I like to have a horizontal abstract shape. You can have it vertical, but the settings I used for the first count, I typed in 18, which means there's about 18 of these cubes horizontally. For the second count, I typed in 1, which means vertically it's only 1 cube tall. And for the third count, I left it at 3, so it has basically a depth of 3 cubes. And for this last size, I decreased it a lot, so there isn't that much spacing between the cubes, so it looks something like that. And for the first size, I increased it, so there's a little bit of spacing like that. So I'm just going to recenter this. So if you missed those values, the first count is 18 and the size is about 630. The second count is 1 and you can keep the size at 200, but it doesn't really matter because there's no spacing. And the third size is 3 and the size is 77. You guys don't have to use those exact values. It's up to you. But let's start making this look random and abstract. So we're going to start off by loading an explosion effects deformer. So we're going to click here on the deformers and we're going to click explosion effects. And we're going to select the explosion effects and the cloner object, and we're going to right click and click on group objects, which makes it into a null object, and the shortcut for that is Alt G. And now that we make it into a null object, basically it applies the explosion effects onto the cloner object. So we're going to have to mess around with a lot of these settings to make it look good. I'm going to start off with the gravity, and for direction we're going to put that on none, so it doesn't have any gravity, so it's not falling down. Next we're going to go to rotation, and we're going to type in 60 for the speed, which is going to rotate some of these pieces. And by the way, you don't have to use the same values I use. You guys can go crazy, mess around, use whatever you want. But I would recommend using what I use to start and then tweaking some of the values to get a look that you like. Alright, for the cluster, we're going to put the cluster type at polygons, which makes a pretty significant difference. Going to go to explosion, and for now we're going to put the strength at 0, which means basically there's no spacing, the pieces aren't exploding out. But we could put this at maybe 50 or something, but no really high value. And now we're going to increase the time under object, which is basically this green sphere, so it is basically the length of the screen, like so. And now we're going to go back to explosion and set the blast range, which is this red circle, and we're going to make it the width of the screen, which basically makes it so this explosion effects is applied to the whole shape, if you know what I mean. So that's looking okay. We might come back and change some of these values later, but for now it's looking pretty cool. Next we're going to add another deformer. We're going to click on the deformer tab, and we're going to add formula, and we're going to drag that into the null object. And this already gives it a really cool abstract look. You can mess around with these values to get something that you like. I like putting the first value at about 40 feet. Looks pretty cool. For this one, I'm going to decrease it to something like 250. And for the last one seems like it doesn't make too much of a difference. So you can see the formula makes a big difference. This is with the formula. This is without the formula. Makes it look a lot more random. But we still have some more stuff to do. So we're going to select the cloner object, and we're going to go to MoGraph, and we're going to select Random Effector. And this makes a huge difference. We're starting to get something like this effect. So for the position values, this basically randomizes the position. I'm going to type in 30 for all of these. But actually for the last one I'm going to put it at 0. Because that is basically the depth value, whether it's coming towards you or going away from you. That's what she said, kind of. Okay, now let's check off rotation, and let's type in something like 50 for all these, which is just gonna rotate all these pieces in a random way. You can see we're really starting to get that cool abstract deformed look. And again, you can mess around with, tweak all these values to make it look cooler. We're actually about done before adding the colors, but you can mess around with some other effectors, having the cloner object selected. For example, step effector looks pretty cool, like that. If I do the position, or let's try the rotation, just gives it another rotated look. So yeah, feel free to experiment with different deformers. You can see just playing around with this, you can get it really cool look. But honestly, this is looking pretty cool as it is, in my opinion, for an abstract shape. Another thing we can do is we can add a twist. Go to deformer and twist and drag it into that null object, but don't drag the effectors into the null object. For the twist, we're going to put the mode at unlimited. Just going to give it, let's say, maybe a little bit of a twist effect. Something on the lines of 50 degrees or 30 degrees or something. It's just a kind of subtle effect. We can also try adding a bend. Since it's abstract, it's really just to screw around and make it look pretty random and cool. I'm going to put this at unlimited. Let's increase the strength a little bit. Put it at maybe 90 degrees. Actually, the bend the form isn't really necessary, so I'm going to get rid of it. So now we're almost done, but let's add some colors to this abstract shape. So depending on how many different colors you want, that's basically how many cubes are in the cloner object. But as you can see, if I start duplicating the cubes, there's still the same amount of cubes in the final product. But this is basically all the different cubes that's going to be cloned in the cloner object. So if you want 3 different colors, you're going to want 3 different cubes. So I'm just going to go with that. And obviously right now I'm just going to choose 3 nice materials. I'm going to do a blue shade for this one. So I'm going to do a really faded blue. Duplicate that and make more bright blue like that. And finally a navy blue. You guys can obviously use whatever colors you want. So I'm just going to do a dark navy blue. And I'm also just going to do a gray to blend it all together. Kind of a darkish gray. And now since I have 4 colors, I'm going to want 4 cubes. Oops, not 5, 4. And you can just drag these cubes, or colors, materials, onto the cubes. You can see it starts working its magic. And this is looking pretty sick. If I select one of these materials, and then make a little rectangle and select them all, now they're all selected. And if we add, for example, a reflection, this reflection is now applied to all the materials and you don't have to do it manually. Kind of a cool tip. I'm going to add a Fresnel reflection, put the brightness at 10% and the mixed strength at 10%. Just going to give it a kind of subtle reflection. This is basically it for the abstract shape. To make it a bit nicer, I'll add real quick ambient occlusion and global illumination. And I'm too lazy to add a plane and add a light and a material. But if you guys want to know how I light my stuff, I basically do the same thing for almost all of my projects. I definitely have many tutorials on my channel where I'll explain lighting, and I have a couple that are just devoted to it. So make sure you go check out my channel if you want some lighting tutorials. This actually is going to take quite a long time to render. It took, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes for the single frame when I rendered it, but it really depends on the settings that you have. I didn't take that much time messing around with the settings on this one. I probably should have. But yeah, you can see it's taking quite a long time to render because it has to render all these different polygons and shapes. But that's about it for this tutorial. Thanks for watching, guys. If you found this tutorial helpful, please like the video, and if you have a question or anything, feel free to comment. That's about it for me, guys, and thanks for watching.